I like recording in voice. I like to keep it a little bit informal because I think these days in AI, I think people like the smudge on the lens, you know. Amazing. Like, thank you. Welcome to our little podcast, um, Discover Energy Work. And really, people don't know we had a few days of trying, do they?
More than a few attempts, actually. So
Literally,
interesting. Stepping
literally.
in. Mhm. For
And
me, four.
but you know, when you're in your business, so you're do you want to introduce everybody to who you are?
Sure.
Uh,
Right.
Daryl.
I don't know how far back to start, but I'll just say my name is Daryl Rocco. I go by D. As just it seems a little formal to carry the name Daryl, but also I do and I respond to it. I am a Vedic astrologer, an Ayurvedic practitioner. That's really just for personal practice these days. Came in through yoga, but also bridge the world through also a corporate lens. So keep one going to do the other, but I really believe that I'm weaving, helping helping me and helping others walk in the world, be of the world, but still um, guess come to know who they are and just live on the planet. So I use all of those mechanisms, but also in 2022 is my year of coming out, I'll say, as a psychic medium and intuitive in a deep way. And those words even still ring a little strange to me. I think labeling that I have connotations that I still work to release. And I know that many, many, many eons of persecution, anyways, follow that, whether it's, I actually think personal experience, whether I popped into somebody else's timeline or have seen my own timeline, and looked at history, we know it's generally not safe to be out in the world. Um, Authentically wearing the robes of intuitive healer, seer, and knower, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Anyways, and I'm a mom. I have kids and
yeah.
I work in the world and all the things. Yeah.
You know, you touch on things that I think you touch on things in such a way where I feel like you've said so much. You just said so much. I'm like, wow. Um, I mean, I think my feeling is straight away I could talk to you for a long time. But like, uh, coming out. So when did this start? What's the roots? Where do we begin?
Hmm. As a child, I could see, hear, and feel things on that I thought were mystical, magical, and scary, very scary, and no way to navigate those. And of course, as many of us have had this experience, and I say many of us, but some that I know have had similar experiences, so that helps me feel like I'm not so alone. I came into the world in that way where my parents didn't really know what to do or how to handle it. And I'm, as a Gen Xer, zillennial, I'll call myself, I guess. It was just kind of like, you don't know what you're talking about. Just shut it down, go to your room. And it was actually, I was really scary actually.
Give me,
And then,
yeah,
mhm.
let's try and focus down onto a like some specific early memories.
Oh, well, ooh, this is very public. Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, and we can edit this
No,
out.
I'm thinking about it and I'm like, well, would I want my colleague to know this? Actually, probably, because it is still who I am, and this is part of the coming out, right? So one of the things I experienced fairly early on and have a very clear memory of, and this sounds very strange, but I was about 9 months old and I'm standing holding a crib. I remember the onesie I had on, my feet in the pajama feet, and I'm kind of chewing on the thing, and all of a sudden there's somebody standing there. It's not my parents, and then they come in, and then this figure's going away, But I'm just having this feeling. It's not that wasn't an abandonment feeling, or my parents were supposed to take care of anything, but so a little thing like that. Another was I was sitting on my couch. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old and the fireplace is brick So like probably in that just waking up state, right? But I'm sitting there and all of a sudden out of the brick come men that were also striped, kind of like Spider-Man in a way, but they morphed out three or four and they started to crawl towards me and I screamed. And of course I got promptly in trouble. It was very early. My dad, everyone's sleeping. So shut that down. Or there would be people in my room, small, large, not in the windows, calling my parents and just not really getting the support that I needed. So those are the types of experiences that I saw that I thought, oh, well, maybe I'm making it up. Fast forward to I'm older. You come into the room and there's someone standing behind you. You can feel it, or I see it. Um, so that happened off and on quite some time. And we moved every single year when I was young.
Mm.
My parents were not in the military from the time I was 5 until I was in high school. And I don't really understand exactly why. Both my parents are no longer here. But the message that I'd gotten was, oh, we were just, trying to keep going or stay afloat, I guess.
Mm.
And feeling already like an oddball in my own skin. I think I ought to mention this as well. It's kind of important for me too. This is part of this story, anyways, because it's part of my story. A story is that today marks a celebration for me. At 27 years old, I had hit a point in my life where nothing was working and helping me through. Like the visions I'd blocked off with drinking and using drugs and alcohol, and just looked like my wheels had come off. My dad had died when I was fairly young. I was 15. And I self-medicated. Today's that 27 mark. So at 27, I got sober, and today's 27 years. So that tells you how old I am, but also it tells you that um, I think my experience as a mystic or seer or knower was not an easy path and it just wasn't easy because they had nowhere to go with this and they didn't really have any way to explain it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell the story of the day that my dad died. Well, he didn't die that day, but so my dad and I had some challenges. I mean, he was my person, he would take me camping. He brought me into nature, really helped me learn how to ground myself. And, as a daddy's girl, it was really, truly like he was my person. But growing up, teenagers do, they kind of push back and they were going through some things and we had an argument and it was one of the very few times that I completely shut down emotionally in my life, just stopped talking. And he used to work a blue collar job as an electrician, and he would get up very early and leave, and I would generally get up and make his lunch. So one morning, 2 weeks after we were not speaking, he came to my doorway. It was about 4:30 in the morning. He opened the door and the light behind him from the hall was on. And he said, I'm leaving. And I said, well, let me make you your lunch. And he's like, no, that's okay. But we're good. I love you very much. But I just wanted to tell you I'm leaving. And I was like, oh, I can get your lunch. And I said, okay, well, I love you. And I gave him a hug and a kiss and I went back in bed. And 4 minutes later, my mom opened the door and she said, your dad's had an accident. And he was an hour away. And I was like, oh, he's not going to make it. So true, he did not make it. He had a fatal accident at work and he had been on life support for a few days. So these experiences of seeing, hearing, and feeling things like in that tangible form, well, I say tangible because it was to me, it was confusing and I didn't really have anywhere to go. Add grief and experience to that. And it's somebody who wants to check out and doesn't want to be in the body. Like I would feel other people's things, I would see things, and it's hard to manage. So I
Mm.
went off the rails a little bit. And it took me until I got to be about 27 to clear that up.
I mean, I think that that would make sense for so many people, though. I suppose for myself, I was quite lucky because the guy that opened me up energetically in China, it's a funny story. I've been following his practice. So he said, like, you do this Wu Wei practice, which means like doing nothing on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Is doing something. So I needed a bit of, it takes a bit longer to understand that one. Um, so I went to his place and, And he sat in another room for hours. And then he came out and he had these enormous eyes.
Mm.
And he's Chinese, so he didn't have enormous eyes, but he did when he came out. He had these enormous eyes. And he said, "You can't drink alcohol." And I said, "You mean like cut it down?" And he said, "No, you can't drink any alcohol." I said,
Uh,
"What happens if I do?" He said, "You'll get a heart problem." And I said, "Is this for everyone?" He said, "No, it's just for you." Like, okay, so I continued to drink for about 6 months or 3 months, and I went, "What am I doing?" I already know. I've traveled around the world. I've moved everything. I've given up my job. I've given up my life in the UK to try and understand what on earth was going on. He tells me, and then I go, "Yeah, but I want to know what's going on, but not that." Um, and of course, I think in a way, this is also the problem that we have as people who see things psychically. We can tell people, "Don't do this," and we have no proof that by telling them not to do it, that the bad thing has been averted. Does that make sense? Yeah, like he goes, "Don't drink alcohol or you get a heart problem." Well, I didn't drink and I haven't got a heart problem. What does that prove?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
all.
doesn't prove that drinking it would have good. I should have tried to prove him right. And of course, I'm joking.
I get it. I know.
Yeah,
It's
isn't it
very,
funny? But one thing that as feedback is like, it seems that your early experiences were of entities or spirits or some kind of some things.
they definitely were. I mean, for one, my brain, I still feel like it's developing, by the way, but the things that were so very saying that word tangible again, very real to me, were not things that you could speak about. For instance, I was leaning on the couch and I was staring up at the ceiling, and the only way I can describe it is like, um, this the Eye of God nebula. There's this it's like a star constellation. It's not a constellation, but it's a planetary constellation. It looks like an eye, and there's this beautiful picture that I think NASA took, and it looks
Yeah.
like an eye. Well, as I'm laying and I look up, the hand that matches the size of that eye, it was pure white, came down and offered itself to me. And I thought, wow, that is incredible. And I was maybe 9. And that's not something you can come out of your room and go, hey, that's what I just saw, when I've already been stifled in some form or fashion. So I shut all that down and then I had to pick up that toolkit and learn how to live life in this body without drugs and alcohol, because it clearly wasn't working. And I was completely despondent and was not getting any better. And I was going to end up dead or in jail. And either one was just a fair, like, okay, whichever is fine, but just make it stop kind of thing.
Mm.
And then when I was able to come to that full surrender, as a 12-step program helped me with, slowly and bit by bit by bit. It actually, not that slowly, if I'm thinking about it, it came back fairly quickly. Probably 3 years into sobriety is when it started coming back on full force, but it came back in a different way. It came back in the way that I needed it to. At that time, it was scary stuff, poltergeisty, where there's shadows on the ground and doors are slamming, toys are going off and they're making noises, and there's no batteries in those toys. And
Wait,
it's
wait, wait.
just,
This is great. Yeah, I love this. This is interesting. So what happened? Let's go into that.
didn't love it.
Yeah, I bet you
And
didn't love it, but it is
no,
amazing. Yeah.
one of the things that happened was I was gaslighting myself in a very big way, because this isn't real. What is this about? I'm scared and I must be losing it. I must be, I was a mom, so my kids were little. I was like, maybe I'm just over fatigued.
Yeah.
Until it started, and then others were noticing it too. But I really had to pull people in to get that affirmation.
Yeah.
I would be in this one particular house. I would walk through the garage to the kitchen. There's this walkway, and there would be shadows that would go up and down. And they kind of like how fast a cat moves. And so out of the periphery. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Oh, that's weird. And that would happen quite a bit.
Yeah.
or everyone would be out of the house, including the littles, and I would hear people walking upstairs. Like I had called the police once because I heard somebody walking upstairs and slam the door. And I was like, huh. And then I'm like, am I losing it? Am I making something up? Is there somebody here? Like, yes, I've had trauma as a child, so I'm running through that scenario. But luckily, as a sober woman, I was going through all of the things: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Um, Anybody else here? Is there another possibility? And the police came, and obviously there was no one, or not obviously, there was no one there at that time, luckily. There were times where I'd hear the toy making this kind of thing in the toy box. And I'm digging around. There's a ton of toys in the toy box. And I pull out the one, the offensive one. And I was like, had taken the batteries out already because it had grated on my last nerve. And I was like, man, okay, that's it. This one's going to the trash. This is crazy. I'm starting to feel really, really scared about what I'm hearing and seeing. And then the other one that really just sent me over the edge was my daughter was pretty young, and I had the baby monitor next to me, and a deep guttural growl came through, this deep, and I thought, oh geez, I flew out of the room. I grabbed her. That was it. I'm scared. I'm just thinking, and who knows what that was. I didn't feel good about it. Could have been static. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What it did for me was it pushed me to that brink of, okay, listen, you need to find somebody that can help you manage, like you did with this. It's like a surrender, surrender to what you don't know
Mm.
and learn about it a little bit. And so I sought somebody out, and she explained to me that, and this is now at this point, I actually was practicing a religion at this point. I was in and out of Catholicism, and growing up, I felt like I needed a connection to a God or something bigger than myself. And that has changed for me over the years. And it works for some people, and I believe in ritual, but for me,
Yeah.
uh, now I sought this woman out. She said, listen, you can claim your space. And how you do that is you claim your space. You offer, sage or smoke Palo Santo and go through every room. You invite those that are not welcome out. You don't have to scream. You don't have to, I did it like a little bit shakingly because it was my first time ever and I was very scared. But the way she explained it was as I'm like, I think the right way to describe this is I'm a transistor, a receiver, of certain types of energy. So if my tuner is down low on maybe on AM, I'm picking up certain bandwidth. But if I raise the frequency, then it will go higher as well. So I won't necessarily be getting the scary spookies in. I can elevate and
Mm.
control. You can turn the dial off if I want to, and put the pause button on that. So that was about 20 something years ago. And over the years, things have peaked and valleyed, and now it's a whole different ball of wax. But the 2022 coming out, you originally asked about, I think what instigated that was autoimmune issues, physical diagnoses, and I'm at that point in my life where it's like IDGAF, like what? I just, what? I have to just be authentically who I am and try to wear that in the world. And whether or not it's okay, it's not really up to me to decide. I'm not here in judgment. I'm here to help others come into their own sovereignty and, get connected into the light and the divine that
Mm.
they so deserve, like I do. But by example, I think.
It's I like the term. I don't know if I made it or somebody else made it, but psychic is the new gay. Yeah. Um,
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
because I mean, okay, I'm not gay, but
Mhm.
I started when I was studying psychology and we're doing human sexuality. It's like somebody is gay, they don't choose it, yeah, and they question themselves. They spend a long time going, no, no, no way, yeah. And then if they could choose not to have it. A lot of people would say, yeah, you know what? I tell you what, I'd be fine. And then there's this process of like embracing it and like breaking it to your family. Like sometimes your family will think you're nuts. I mean, that's not a professional term, you know, but They'll think there's schizophrenia or delusional or
Oh,
hallucinating or whatever. Um, and the labels that get put on you, they are life changing, like schizophrenic. It's life changing. You'll never get out of that one.
I got hit.
Um, but yeah, I mean that sounds incredible because honestly, I've had very few psycho. We call for the new viewer, we call a psychic um, influence that moves objects, psychokinetic. So um, I've had very few psychokinetic things where something's physically been moved. Uh,
Mhm.
but I know they exist. And I've met people who've had them. And yeah, oh wow. And what's so nice, actually, I'm hearing like because I think like the viewer doesn't realize I don't know you at all. We've spoken and tried to arrange this, but I'm like, I don't know anything about you. So I'm sort of fascinated. This interest you've got is like really an interest of mine right now, is helping people connect to that center, like become I'll use the term that I like, which is self-realize, like realize at the center of them, there's something which is so like I'll say the words holy, but I mean like divine, special, it's gobsmacking. It's
Yep.
amazing. And everyone's got it without without exception. And there are ways to experience it, and then a whole new paradigm or new world kind of opens up. Um, so do you want to tell me about how you got to that? I mean, like not a big question or anything.
I mean, since it's out there, um, how I got to what? How I
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
being
Well,
that.
I mean, the, how did you get to starting to want to bring people towards their center, towards
Oh,
their,
actually, I think that was spoon-fed to me from a 12-step program in a different way. Well, in a couple of ways actually. So okay, now I understand the question. I am a very linear thinker, by the way, and as many of us are on that spectrum. So the very specifics help me understand. I, one of the steps in a 12-step program is I'll paraphrase it because we're anonymous to talk in a certain way. So, is to stay clear and help other people to see their own clarity. I'm using other words to be the light and then bring people into the light. And I don't mean like going saving people. I mean like reminding them that who they are is already their own birthright is connected to something bigger than themselves. The peace within, I guess.
Hmm.
I know that I chased for a long time and sometimes even now still will, like if I don't feel well, like I'm reaching outside of myself to help myself feel better inside. And that's not exactly how it works. It's never going to be really truly the outside things helping me on the inside. So what has to happen is this deep surrender. And I had to have that deep surrender in that 12-step program, which brought me forth, cleared my channel more. And then as things started to come in this way, it was a natural segue for me. It was like inner tubing down the river, going, oh, okay, I know what my purpose on the planet is. It is to stay sober and to help somebody else get sober. Deeper then, also help be that clear channel, and then let them find their own way back to themselves in light. That sounds kind of like a little bit circular. So it wasn't a jump for me at all, except for finding those people. It's not like looking up an AA meeting. No, it's a whole other ball of wax. And for somebody who's highly introverted, is now working remotely. I had the benefit of growing up in San Diego, so that you can't throw a stone without hitting two sober people with one stone who are also yoga teachers who are, into this realm of out here, which kind of also carried something with
Yeah.
that. But then I've since moved to Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm living here now, and I thought it would be a complete shift, and it is and it isn't is beautiful. But finding the people that it's almost like there, like I think you maybe have said this in our brief conversation prior, there are no coincidences. Things happen the way that they're meant to, I think, or divinely inspired or orchestrated prior to coming. Also in my birth chart, and so I'm a Vedic astrologer, and one of the things that I really love about that, and that speaks to me, is that it made more sense to me, um, I understood myself a little bit more in looking at that chart. And with my Rahu Ketu axis, my purpose on the planet is service work, and then, but also, moksha and liberation of other things. So like I needed to let go of something in order to see that service is where I'm standing. And I don't mean like I need to beat down the door and save everybody and serve and serve and serve. It's just more along the lines of she who feels it knows it, and I can share that with others, and just help them to or help each other. It feels a little strange, but when you find your people, and it's amazing. It's liberating.
Mm.
It is liberating.
Find your people being psychic people, or
Yeah.
yeah.
People who have had, that we'll call them experiencers, or have had other worldly experiences or unexplainable, I'll call them impressions, because diagnosis is impressions or visions or information that comes through that's verifiable, or, through remote viewing or something like that. Remote viewing gave me, it helped me stop gaslighting myself, because it was like tangible proof back to myself. Like you're not just making that up. Here you go.
It, I didn't know. So you did remote viewing.
As well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so was that was like part of your healing process, was studying remote viewing?
I didn't study it, actually. I only just did it recently. But the funny thing is, like, I've always been intuitive, medium, psychic, and sharing and doing readings for people and giving feedback, and, walking in this world of, we'll call it the woo. But only in December of last year did somebody, say, "Hey, do you want to try this thing?" I was like, "Yeah, all right, why not?" And then what it gave me was like, "Oh, look, it is the thing."
No, 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 no. Let's go back. Let's go. What did you remote view? How did they target you? Did
Um,
they tell you what they wanted you to see, or they said there's this thing?
Oh, no, no, it was a couple of, I've done it, I mean, I have a log I've been tracking off and on. That particular one was just a practice try. I'd never done it before. I didn't know what it was, so I had been given a number, and I would go and sit and meditate, and then I would draw and write, and then I sent a screenshot back. I'd start beginning time, start and ending times, and then got my feedback, and it was pretty great. That was interesting. It was just more like, oh wow, look at that. Okay, that I can see it now. I can see it. So I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like to me, like I had the experience, a lot of experiences with remote viewing. It was in a similar way. It was helping me stop gaslighting myself, which I really, you know what, I hadn't really thought of remote viewing of having this function for psychics. That we think the whole time we're doubting ourselves, and then you do something like remote viewing, which has got a very well, at least I studied with a structure, and you've got this like I had this impression that I couldn't see of gladiators in a like groups of gladiators running against each other and like fighting. And then the feedback was an American football game.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's what I
Wow.
saw. I mean, I thought it was gladiators, but that's what I saw. I know,
Yeah.
100%.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, like weird stuff. I mean, more than one. But that was the one that really stuck in my memory. That I kind of nailed the target, and yet I didn't get it either.
I
So
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So well, that's really interesting. And do you do remote viewing work? Is that something you do
I
now?
would love to. I don't necessarily, because there's this part of me that feels like, and then what? It's a cool party trick. Then what do you do with it? What am I to do with it? You know? So it's a new world
Off
for me. I'm
Angela, and she's still doing it. Yeah, she's still
yeah, yeah, exactly.
they
Exactly.
they there's people that want to know answers to questions that can't be answered by satellites,
I
for
guess
example.
I would be more than happy to do that. And it would be an amazing thing to do for a job or a living or so. But I just haven't gone that pathway yet, but it's really fun for me and I enjoy it a lot. Yeah. And it's given me that, yeah, I stopped gaslighting myself.
Yeah, that's very cool. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's that I've got the same experience, but I never, what can I say, was able to verbalize it like that. And I had, funnily enough, Lynn Buchanan, who was teaching me the very first class, people said he's a cheat, he's lying, and da da da. And I always, always said, I mean, I said, okay, like whatever, yeah. But when I do it, and I'm getting the results, so he can't be lying that much, yeah. It's working for me, yeah. I mean, I'm really seeing these things, and I think it's hard for people to know what is the transliminal or the psychic side is not, well, for me, it's not like I see something. I get it's a total different
Totally different.
side.
Yeah.
It's not like my normal seeing. So yeah, that's kind of weird and really, really hard to, I would say it's more akin to feeling than seeing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
I,
feeling space.
it's an interest, it's an interesting thing. I would say I was describing to my partner this morning, how different it is for me sometimes when I have when during meditations where or I'll call it meditation or accessing where I get like my ancestors. It's almost like a plug and play for me, and I'm sure it may be different. I don't know, I haven't studied this so much, but it may be different and it's got to be different for everyone. My ancestors, you would think they'd be behind me because it's in the past, but they're not. They're on the front and to my left, and I have a slew of people I can rely on. And then when I get guides and beings and those that are not of this world, they're on my right. But then when I get like guides and beings and maybe gods, something giant, they zoom in front of me and they are here. It is so fascinating. But I also will have physical manifestations of rumblings and just different types of doors slamming and things like that, that I think a lot of people,
Mhm.
or the sounds of it.
Right. So when you're meditating, that starts to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes not. Sometimes I'm fully awake and things will happen. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we're not right now. Not right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a bizarre one the other day, and I have no explanation for it. So I sort of, this is so weird, because I've been I forget what I was doing. I think I've been helping somebody clear a. They said they said, and this is like I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I'm going to say what they said. They said they had a client. The client had a demon, yeah, and the client told them they had a demon, and I went, okay. And he said he's feeling dizzy. And after treating the client, I said he's feeling dizzy. So I did clearing for him. And he said, oh, I feel much better. I can sleep and everything. And then I'm sitting in a traffic light and I get this sharp pain on my shoulder, really, like really sharp. I mean, I'm like, what has happened? And I've got a burn on my shoulder, across the shoulder. I'm like, wow. And I was wearing this sort of shirt. I'm like, how, how did that even, like, the shirt's not burned. How did that even happen? And I'm like, but I still go to, I guess, I'm not saying I'm gaslighting myself, but going, there could be another rational explanation. But I'm on my motorbike at the traffic light, and left and right are just normal people. There's nobody that's splashed anything to me. I haven't made anybody upset with me. And that's there. And that's like, hmm, yeah, okay. And yeah, it's so random. So that's the most recent thing that I don't have an explanation for. I don't know what it is. And then but you see, I tend to have um and maybe I've got the wrong attitude. I tend to have an open heart to these things anyway. So if it's I'm not sure it even was a demon. No, mostly it's an entity that's really sad and mixed up, spirit. And so I tend to think, it just probably wants to be connected to the self, reconnected. Um, but yeah, it just reminded me of that experience. Um, I'm interested if you opened up, it's like before, did you have any entities go in and cause you trouble?
I would say so. I would say so. But first, let me go back to something that came to mind when you were just talking about this experience. And one of the things that I think really helps me and probably many others is like, I had to become curious about what was happening because, to your point, I'm like, what is that? Okay, well, we can just shut it down and we do, right? Or sometimes when I was on a plane and it was coming through the mediumship stuff and I'm like suddenly I have this deep shame, but I'm doing nothing, like I'm not guilty of anything. I've done nothing wrong. I'm a good person. I'm living a clean life. I've been doing this for a long time and I'm just sitting there and all of a sudden I just want to cry. And I know to go through the whole, okay, well, I'm not picking up on his feelings because I don't do that. But then information's coming through and you have to, so I have to be curious. And so asking the questions, well, is it me? Is it them? Is it that, you have to go through this, or I had to go through this list. And the physical manifestations, I used to drive for an hour up the five in California to go to work. And I get this hot thing on my neck when I would pass the place that my dad used to work. And I was like, thought it was my partner's cell phone as he's holding, his mobile phone. And I'm like, get your phone away from me. It's too hot. Or is the sun shining through the window? And then I would be alone and it would happen. And I was like, oh, I needed the physical thing to get the attention to ask the question. And it turned out when it's my children, it's here. My yeses are my rights. My no's are my left. My feet are my maybes. I, get the egg on the head. I get the tapping. I get the on the arms, the touching on the arms. But then most recently, I started to get through the back of my head, which I understood to be like an upgrade of sorts, and it can happen when I'm sleeping and it can happen when I'm awake. But it is really an interesting thing, and it can be a little bit painful. So I get that when there's something going on with the body and you're like, what just happened? I don't know. No allergies that I'm aware of. Nothing hit me. It doesn't make sense. And here we are, not making sense, so to say, but not really. So I honor that thank you for sharing that because it is kind of, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think curiosity is great. I agree. Like just going, oh, that's interesting. Wonder what that is. And then just instead of like, oh, just like, oh, um, I'm gonna take I'm gonna take a curious, open-minded approach to this. I'd like to know what's happening. And if it is something that wants to get my attention,
Mm-hmm.
you please, come and talk. And I had the bizarre experience of having a lady in, I was working in a resort, and this lady had been massaging monks in Bhutan.
Mm-hmm.
And she came over, I was sitting on a chair, and she came over and she like did this to me. Like I was on one of these, swivel chairs and I had a bounce to it. And like I left and I was like, oh, I don't feel good. And and then I had this voice inside that was really nasty, making, critical comments about everything and everyone. And about an hour I went, that's not me. I know me. That's not me. And so um that was one of the experiences where I went, okay, you know, I'll call it a demon, but I think it was just a spirit or perhaps a collection of spirits just came in. Um, and I was I was actually traumatized because I felt like there's no way that could happen to me. And then it was there.
And sometimes it's so telling because that is not the natural path for me anymore. My natural mode of thinking is sometimes I'll pause before I'll say yes to something. Like I usually have to think it through the process. But my first thought isn't generally negative. So when that happens, like this, after an experience where bumping into people or being in a crowd or something along those lines, yeah, I think it's important to you can get curious then. What is that? What happened? And
Hmm.
so I got to tell you, Richard, I in a million years, never did I ever think that I would be talking openly about something that has been so private to me and such a and talking about it in such an open way, mostly because of maybe the visions that I've had or the experiences that I've had,
Yeah.
whether and recently, like I know that it's a bigger deal, but I know that the greater good is to help other people become comfortable in their own experiences and to be that light. And we touched on it a little bit when we first met, but I think the healing lies within releasing or allowing, I'm trying to think of the right word, uh, and just allowing, perhaps, maybe, allowing that compassion for self, compassion for others, being that light. It requires sometimes internal work, external work, working with others or getting, outside help, but also just we have this light and the more it can shine, it also brings in things like you just talked about.
Well, so what's happening in currently in psychotherapy is psychotherapists, there's a modality where psychotherapists are being taught shamanic modalities, yeah, and um and getting how can I say evidence-based results.
Mm-hmm.
So they're using what you might say medium skills to talk inside themselves. So talk to the inner voices instead of what we'd say, an inner voice is like, shut up. Nobody knows you're there. Just keep it down. Yeah. Um, Instead of that, they're going, oh, hi, thanks for coming through. Uh, and it's like, wow, you hear me? Like, yeah, so I'd like to talk to you. How you doing? How long have you been there? And have a curious mind. And again, curiosity is one of the qualities of this central energy that I call in my books. I say we need to find our center, but it's literally physically it's in the body in the center, and it manifests when you meditate. Your central energy, your energy in the center rises, the kundalini, yeah, or the the inner pillar, the taiji, the inner pillar, um, and then things like wisdom, compassion, caring for yourself and others, calmness, all these things are just manifest. And then this is being taught. I believe it'll be taught more and more because it's getting good results. Um, and with AI, you know, a lot of things, yeah, I think they'll become more psychic, because AI's got the knowledge, but it doesn't have the knowing. It doesn't have the compassion. It doesn't have
Mhm.
the connection.
Yeah, I
And
agree with that. I would
yeah,
also say that those that are coming up behind us are, they're split, of course, but there are some kids that I see, some of my friends that are in their 30s and younger, and they're just powerhouses of energetic light. And it gives me hope to think, and I love to focus on that which is, life sustaining and affirming as opposed to news or programming. Um, that maybe it'll just be a little bit more natural, like we're making progress, I see, or at least in my lifetime I've seen the progress in my own experience, let alone those that are behind me.
mm,
But I still have this is what I'm saying, is like I think it's so funny that here I am bridging this. I work in the legal field for corporation, and that's so foreign to me, but at the same time it's not, because I can connect with the humans in that experience, and it unfolds in another way. But I think I think the paradigms are slowly starting to shift, and then Yeah, we can talk more openly about it, I guess. Like you said, it's the new gay. That's hilarious to me because that's exactly kind of how I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I think I made it up. Maybe somebody else did. I think it was me. I've forgotten it so long that I've gone, that's a really good one. Must remember that one. I put a Facebook page like Psychic is the New Gay. Like,
I
um,
think I might have to borrow that term because
yeah, no, we've got to put it out there. Um,
mhm.
and but it's funny because I feel like I studied law during my psychology degree. We did a semester, and I was like, wow, it's so noble, compassionate itself. I know it doesn't necessarily work out like that always, but like the idea behind it is so noble and compassionate. And so, the whole concept of justice is like it's so about that middle pillar, that middle, yeah,
Mm,
for me. So yeah, I just want to say that like I can
that's
being on
beautiful.
the outside of the industry, I can go, oh, but law, oh, law. And then yes, I know once you get down to it, there's like anything, there's shadows, yeah.
That's
But, yeah. So, Vedic astrology. I've got to ask the question because I think your website is sort of a little bit Vedic astrology.
a little bit. Yeah, that was my doorway in actually. So before the pandemic, well, actually in like 2014, I started doing readings, and then I got a little more bold and brave, and I would do Vedic astrology readings. And then not too long after, I'd be in the middle of a reading and I'd start getting hits. And then I'd say, okay, wait, what about? And I would offer something related to the other side through to the client, depending on if that's something they were open to. And it helped me again, like take the training wheels off about being who and what I am and just being a little bit more bold with it. But people really are very interested. And it's crazy to me that I can look at a birth chart and just I feel like I'm peeking in somebody's drawers. It's a little like give me birth time. I want to know what's going on there. And
I've
they don't.
never, okay. That's amazing. So I'm curious because I do this psychic work as well.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel I don't get nothing speaks to me. I just say stuff. I just
Yeah.
it I just say it. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know where that come from. But it's like out of drunken people and little babes. Yeah. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And because the and I think it's sort of my character. It says like I'd rather do not claim any truth, but hopefully have a validity because I do healing. So I'd like, okay, you're gonna feel better. But everything I said, whether it's true or not, you don't even have to worry because I'm only interested in shifting your energy to be more centered and balanced about whatever problem you have. Um, so do you hear a voice?
I hear, see, and feel.
Oh my God, that must be so difficult.
I mean, no, because I don't think it's been any different for me from, except for when I shut it all down and I was outside of my body. It's not difficult. No, it's cool. Actually, if I'm being honest, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool, but I think I'd have to be in my center a lot to deal with that.
I think so too, because if you're not, it's very surprising. And once in a
Yeah,
while,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay, calm down. What is that from, or where is that coming from? But I will say, like, with respect to the birth charts and being also intuitive and psychic, I think I use the chart as an understanding of a personality. Like if I meet somebody, I can look at a picture and go, okay, this is what's going on with this person. This is what I think. I have trouble deciding if they're alive or not because I think spirit continues on, and so I've had a little, but I still make those distinctions and try and help with things like that.
Mm.
But I will say, the chart for me gives a deeper understanding when somebody is being shut off a little. And I'm not ever going to read, psychically read somebody or go into their sphere without permission. I just don't do that. I think that is just, I don't have the interest to, number one, unless somebody wants to know something. And number two, I have too much going on inside of me. I don't need to go
Right,
over there
right.
and ask me. But I think it's an interesting roadmap. And of course, even with a reading with a chart, the Vedic astrology allows for predictions where Western is doesn't have that in its as far as I know, in its practices. And I mean bigger predictions for a person's lifetime and karma's ripening at certain timelines. Themes, like the interesting thing I believe, and I could be misstating it here, but like the Vimshotra Dasha cycles, those are very specific to an individual. And that's when karma's ripening about certain things. So that gives me an idea of what could happen. However, how that person responds is really subjective and up to them. And you have free will. Could say
Wow.
no thanks. I don't know. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty
That,
fascinating. But the will come through, and I'll get information if I'm in that state and I'm with a person on Zoom, and family starts coming in. Sometimes before I even sit down, family or information, or it depends on how deep that person wants to go. Yeah.
wow.
Mm. Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah,
And
I'm curious now. Of course, I'm curious. Yes,
yes,
that's
there you are. Good. Yeah, we're getting curious about the things that
that
are.
is interesting.
Mhm.
I mean, I started using cards a little bit, um, but I found astrology is too complicated. Like at least Western astrology is so complicated. Um, but I, but I recently I got a tie, which is probably come from the India, um, a Thai Ajahn, like a professor, they're called Ajahn, to do my astrology and then make an amulet for me to
That's beautiful.
balance my astrology. Yeah. So he said, "Oh, yeah, there's these things, these elements you're missing, and because you're born without them, there's nothing you can do. Like, I'll I'll make I'll make this to kind of help you balance things out." And I'm like, you know what? If it works, it's worth double the money. Yeah, it's worth five times the money. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, you know, I mean, he's been doing it some time, so there must be. I always feel again, I'm gaslighting my poor
It's
friends, aren't I? Really?
funny how
But
we do that.
yeah, but I mean, see if I've got his book, the books. Yeah. Oh, I can reach for one of them. Oh, is this one of them? Oh, it's got a great cover. Whoa. Yeah. But you see, in for the Thais, for the Buddhist approach is meditate on your own death
Mhm.
as much as you can, not a bad thing. Yeah. Then at least you'll live your life more, you know,
Fully.
consciously, mindfully, and so on. Yeah, so I got that made up, and I honestly believe it's made a difference. And then I went to this temple in Bangkok, and I met this chap right at the back in the corner. It's like, you feel like you're telling somebody a hypnotic story because I went in the temple, I got a blessing, and I went to the back, and there's this giant snake. And then behind the snake is
Oh,
totally exactly the way it is. Behind the snake, the Naga, yeah, was this man in a little grotto, and he had lots of masks behind him of various gods, and he's doing tarot card readings, and he said the most amazing things. I was like, wow. Um,
mm.
and yeah, and his tarot cards were Rider Waite. But
Yeah, that's a good one to learn on too. Yeah, and they always work, I think. It,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah, it was like really a little bit. And he told me I have to go and feed the snakes.
I
So
believe that actually
yeah,
that's interesting. I just had a couple of different cobra meditations recently.
yeah,
I would say divination, early on for me, I thought, what am I doing? And how to learn the Rider Waite. I thought that's too much. I'm the person that wants to get into the weeds and like open and read all the things and know all, like this. And the best practice for me was every day just pulling a card and asking what the intention for me is that day, looking at it and understanding it and maybe reading it. And I've been doing that for probably 20 years now or so. And once I know that deck, you can pretty much use the others. But I used tarot and I use a pendulum, but mostly it's just my guides. I know I've worked close enough with them, and it's yes, no, beat, so I can get it in my body if it's meant to be given to me, but not about myself or about my.
So you have guides.
Oh yeah. One that I'm very close with, and then two others that they appear for me. Yeah.
So how did they, when did they appear?
Probably about 15 years ago. And that was, it comes from behind me. This one is behind me on my right side. Mhm.
Yeah. Was
And
there
but I
there a
really
story?
worked hard to get connection with that. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, you worked hard to get a connection with it. Okay. Do you want to tell us about that?
To understand. Yeah, to know what the difference was. But there are a couple of methods, I think, once somebody starts practicing or, first cleaning the vessel a little bit. Maybe you don't even have to. I don't know. But for me, my body tells me not what not to eat and what not to drink. So, and my experience is don't do that. It's a certain thing. So, I'm aware of the subtleties. And when I started practicing Reiki in 2004, I could feel energy up my body, like boom. It was as if I was standing on a vibrating plate and it just kind of goes up my legs. So knowing what that feels like, becoming more aware of, the space between my hands and feeling that. And like even right now, I can feel the gumminess of it.
Hmm.
And so when I started working, what my guides had come through long before, but trying to understand the yeses and the nos, I just asked them to show me. And then I paid attention to my body and it was super subtle. And then I would do little questions throughout the day. Simple, nothing of great importance because that's not the point of it. Like, oh, am I going to have a car accident today? No, not like that. Should I wear white today? Yes or no, show me. And then following the instructions. So I'm not playing games. Um, I'm following through with the guidance.
Right.
And that was a really good way for me to learn how to work with it. Yeah.
Fascinating. Very
Do you
cool.
have do you have your yeses and nos?
Yeah, I have my yeses and nos. I got amazing stories about my yeses and nos. So I generally like journeys. I muscle test, and if it's strong, it's okay. And strong means 10 out of 10 strong. And if it's
Mm.
mostly it's 10 out of 10. And then one day I had this journey. I was on Koh Samui on an island, and it's a very dangerous road. Like a person a day dies on this one road every day. So it's just at least one. So I got a not strong, and I'm like, typically I've got an appointment. I have to travel on this road. I've got to go there. It's really important for me. So I did all the energy work, and I got it up to like 7, 8 out of 10 strong. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go, and I hope it's okay. And it's a mountain road, and it's curvy. It's by the sea. There's drops. It's like, anyway. And of course you've got blind corners and people coming around the corners on the wrong side. And it's just like, yay, it's a Bond movie. It's a Bond movie. And
Oh.
and then I nearly arrived at the destination, and then I got a puncture, but it was 10 meters from a puncture repair shop. And I'm like, I mean, I know, like suddenly up and it's gone. It's a very dangerous thing, but I wasn't going fast. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. And then I pulled in. And then on the way back, I got similar. I was like, it's not strong again. I'm not strong to go back. So I worked on it, and literally this car just pulled out in front of me, and I stopped, and it was literally, like this far from touching the car. And I'm like, okay, remember this. And then I had this one lady I was mentoring for some time, and she's in California, so I'm doing it over Skype, and she says, I want to make this trip. I'm going to drive my car for 5 hours. I had COVID, but I'm better. And I said, no. I said, you're not strong to it. Don't do it. And she went, but I'm better now. I said, okay. But listen, I've never, ever like taken a trip where it's weak. And this is weak. So please take my advice. And I really don't like to give advice. I like to strengthen people so they make their own decisions. But on something like that, I'm going to go, no, you need to listen to me. You need to follow my advice. And so she followed my advice. And then I think, if I remember correctly, she started to make the trip and somebody else was in the car. I said, yeah, okay, that's okay. And then literally on the trip, the COVID just came back like she was out of it. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I had no idea, but I knew don't do it. I
Mm,
really, really, really knew. And I tend to get memories before things happen.
mhm,
Um, like before, I think part of me, our mix up was I was getting or we were both picking up information of what it'd be like when we meet. Um, and so before I do a session, if I feel very, very tired before a session, then I'll be connecting quite deep during that session. So I'll
mm.
literally go, yeah. I'll be like, why am I so tired? Why can't I know I always forget, yeah. So I was like, what? Oh, why am I so tired? I don't know why I'm so tired. And I was like, yeah, you're always tired. This afterwards during the session, I go, oh yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, I've had a couple of like liminal experiences where I've really seen something. One was a couple of days ago, um, where this I saw this dead body
Mhm,
inside, not
mhm,
outside, inside. And I was shocked. And I'm like, what? I don't know what this is about. And I was working with it because it was really present to me. So it's like, I think for the viewer that does not know these things, it's like it's really there for you. There's no difference between it uh, being imaginary there and really there. It's in fact, in a way, it's even more there than if it were really there. Because I've been in front of a dead body, whether it's been some family member or a cadaver in the pathology in university. So then it's really there, and I kind of call up and I just or call the downward world. I say I need some help here because I don't know what to do. And this strange bird with a funny, like Egyptian bird with a funny
mhm.
beak
Yeah.
came down, and I thought, oh, is that a god? And it doesn't make any sense to me. And I looked it up, and there's a Thoth or Tot. And then
Oh,
like he doesn't actually he's the hermit, but it doesn't make sense. I don't think it's him. And I think it's Bennu, if you've ever heard of Bennu.
mm,
The actual bird with this long beak was for death and rebirth.
mm,
And it was actually the bird that came down and was snuggling and helping this
mm.
thing. And it it was I was like gobsmacked. I mean, I'm still gobsmacked. I'm still
It,
amazed. Like, wow, did that just happen? And yes, who can I talk to about that?
that's the thing. You with some of the things we want to share, it's like
Right.
you're right, very
Better
short
we'll
lived.
keep this secret between just you and me, I think.
Not
Uh,
out on the internet. Nowhere else.
no one else will know.
Not gonna know. They're not gonna know. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
I, as you were talking about that, that reminds me of um, you know, premonitions and dream state for me. And one of the other things that I think strengthened my intuitive practice was I would immediately journal when I woke up. That's why I had a dream where, and I have not studied dreams. I mean, symbolism in some form or fashion. And I'll make this quick, but my daughter, when she was 2, my youngest, when she was about 2, I had a dream that she drowned and I was horrified and, sobbing. And by then, I'm like 6 years sober or so, or right around that time. And I was going through quite a bit. I had 6 people in my family died in a 2-year period of time when I was sober. And it was just very, very destabilizing, but at the same time, very much of an awakening time and helping me understand that there's more. This was also the other push to maybe I should revisit what's really beyond this realm, you know? And when I found that book from, what's his name? Many Lives, Many Masters, Brian Weiss, it cracked the door open for me, right? So that was part of it. And that was in my sobriety and working through this, what else is out there. So this dream really floored me. And one of the women that I used to go to groups with suggested I dream journal. And so I started doing that. And then I was getting premonitions in visits, you know, like if there's not a face of a deity or a being visiting you, generally, it could be actually that being. And that was an interesting thing. So what happened then for me is it started to I started to become more aware of what was going on in the dream state. So now, and for years, decades now, as I start to fall asleep or as I lean back and drift back, I click into where I was prior-ish. So I remember where I was dreaming and what was happening, and then I kind of just fall right back into the same place. Not always the same dream, but it comes to me again. And to me, that I sometimes I wake up and I'm exhausted because of what's gone on, as opposed to, you know, just lucid dreaming and out of body experiences are not something that I've been quote unquote chasing yet, but lucid dreaming happens for me all the time. I just am not so skilled about what I'm always doing. I need to be more of the being, I think.
Do you think there was a, because I'm curious, I feel like, um, and it's going to sound bad, but I feel like there was a traumatic incident or there was something that cracked us when we were very young. Um, and we opened to, in a way that, like, yeah, you're kind of maybe not supposed to open, but like our energy just expanded. And so we were
Yeah.
connecting very differently. And so um, we were more sensitive than, other people. So did you have a very young, early experience of being prematurely born or nearly
You
died?
know,
No.
I have a lot of memory gaps. I have probably about from the time I was 5 till I was about 11, 12, 13, huge gaps in memory, moving every year. You know, and you could say that's traumatic. I don't know. There were things I'm sure that have happened, but I also felt like, quote unquote, I had a decent childhood, but I've got things that probably the medical industry would say is not necessarily tracking along with how I respond to certain things, whether it's a trauma response or,
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And nothing that clearly call into fruition, but I do know that I'm sure there's trauma somewhere and what causes that. Trauma is different levels for everyone. Gabor Mate is one of my favorite teachers about how to unravel trauma in the body and about addiction and whatnot. And
Mm.
sure, I'm sure there's something there. My body tells me so.
Mm. Yeah. I think um, the body is the most incredible source of, yeah. Mm. Wow. I think we could, is there any, like, can we like tell people where they can find you? Like, so if we,
Absolutely. I don't have a webmaster who's working on or marketing team working on my website at all, but it's www.soul Sanculpa, and I'll share that with you. And Soul Sanculpa, why I chose that name was many moons ago, and it had to do with Sanculpa can generally translate as intention. So I like the soul's intention is kind of mapped with us when we come, and it's a little bit like our fingerprint here in this life. And we always have that with us. And I think that's what's so beautiful about fingerprints is like our soul's energetic imprint is always ours, even though we merge with the divine and we merge with each other and we are part of one greater thing. We
mm,
are also individuals experiencing in this world and realm. So you can reach me that way through my website. My email is Daryl at Soul Sanculpa. I can share that as well. Yeah, I'm
mm,
happy to connect with anybody who's got questions or thoughts, concerns. And the other thing I didn't mention that I also have been practicing, which is super fun. This is my favorite thing lately, is beyond quantum healing. it's taking people through, it's a little bit like a past life regression or a future life regression or a regression of sorts. And Candace um, Candace Coleman or Craw Coleman used to work with Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you know who that is, but yeah, so this is an offshoot of this. It's just the only difference is that you can do it on Zoom as opposed to being in person. So it helps people uncover their lost memories, which is something I've been seeking to do.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm always like, wow, that's totally amazing. I want to do that. I want to do everything.
No,
Um,
Jack, serve none over here.
yeah. Um, well, we will move on. I want to thank you. I'm going to talk to you when I press stop record, everybody. I don't want you to hear. I want just Daryl to hear. So I'm gonna press like stop. Please like and subscribe if you like me talking to amazing, fantastic, like unbelievable people. And I will make some shorts out of this as well. So please follow my shorts and have a great evening. And thank you, Daryl.